Just, okay. Most teachers teach beginners in a really chaotic way. They tend to teach way too much vocabulary, and the lesson ends with the students really being confused because there's not an overreaching goal for teaching all of these terms. What you want to do instead is end your lessons with real life communication. So what this is going to look like for a beginner class is about 3 to 5 questions that students can ask each other and give answers to in real time without the use of notes. So I'm going to think of those 3 to 5 questions first. I want them all to be topical related, and I want them all to kind of make sense in a real life conversation, even if we're planning it for a very low level. Let's put some examples up. I've got one here, which is all about living situations. And this one over here is about daily activities. We got a third one up here, which is about wearing clothing and different types of clothing you might wear in different situations. And a final one here, which is about jobs. We're gonna work on this one here for our actual lesson. If you look at the questions, you can see that they're all similar in that they're dealing with the same topic or theme, and they're all in the same grammatical tense, which is good. But they're all slightly different. And the point of this is that each question is going to bring out different kinds of vocab, which is good because you want things to sound realistic. And when people talk, they don't just ask the same question over and over again. Also notice with these questions, I'm using really authentic language. The first question, I didn't ask, what's your job? Because that just doesn't sound realistic, right? It sounds kind of fake or weird. What do you do for a living is a much better phrase, so why not teach that? And some of you might think, but it's beginners, why would you teach them something that's so nuanced? It doesn't really work that way. Even at the beginner level, I want to teach the language that they're naturally going to use. Why teach them something that sounds strange? It just doesn't make any sense. Once I have those questions planned, I'm going to pull out every single noun, adjective, verb, part of speech that will come up in both the asking and answering of the question. If a word doesn't come up in the answer, I'm not going to teach it. And this part is extremely important because I'm not just teaching different kinds of jobs. I'm also teaching the places where the jobs are held, like a school or a hospital. I'm teaching part-time or full-time, and then I'm also teaching language around if they like the job or not, yes or no. Because if I just teach jobs, 14 different careers or 10 different careers, they're not going to be able to answer these other questions. So thinking about the answer, the language that they need to successfully answer that question is how you make this whole thing work. I've thought of my questions, I've thought of my answers, and I've pulled out all of the words that I think that they're going to need to be able to complete this. And this is what it looks like here. So this is what I think they're going to need to be able to ask and answer these questions effectively. And now that I have that, we can go through the 5 points. Point 1 of the 5 points is to teach and practice your vocab. Guys, I did a whole video of this in video number 2. Please watch that and check it out because it'll take about 10 minutes for me to go over all of those tips, and that's a waste of your time. But essentially what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be eliciting all of my words out with non-verbal, usually visual elicits. I'm going to board them up correctly. We're going to drill them 10 times. I'm going to put all these words up, and then we're going to CCQ them. So for example, I'll show them a picture. This is what is she? She's a doc something, what, anybody? Good, a doctor. We'll drill it. A doctor, a doctor, a doctor, a doctor. Don't skip your drilling with beginners. They really need that pronunciational practice. I'll do my second word. This is where she works, and this is a school? No, it's a hospital. Good. Hospital, same exact thing. Drill it 10 times or so. I'm going to do that with all of my words. Once I get these all up on the board, we're going to do a rapid fire, fast CCQ check, going through them all. And I'm going to end point 1 with a written study, usually like a gap fill to help them practice writing the words down. Remember, when they're doing their study one, I want to erase this stuff. I want them to be able to write the word down on their own without the use of the board. The goal for point one is that students really need to know these words. They need to say them correctly, they need to spell them correctly, and they need to be able to identify them fast. This is going to take some time, so it's usually about 10 to 15 minutes that I'll spend here. But if I move on to point two, without a lot of practice, it's all going to fall apart. Point two, elicit and practice the answer to my first question. A lot of teachers, when they're teaching beginners, start by asking their students questions. Don't do this, it's bad. If students don't really understand the question and they don't have any practice answering the question, they're not going to be able to do that, and they're just going to look at you with these blank faces. So instead, I want to practice that answer. So what do you do for a living? I will simply come up and I'll elicit this response out. So and I'll write I up on the board, and then I'll show them one of the pictures of one of the professions, and they know this, so they'll say doctor, and I go, correct. And then I'll elicit the verb that should go here. And they'll probably eventually put am, right? Of course, in real life, I'll be writing this up on the board, but I find with these videos, if I write and I'm filming, the glare is kind of off. But I will just simply trail the right answer out for them. And it's likely that they might give me something wrong, but I will lead them to the correct language. So once we have this full phrase up on the board, I'm a doctor, I'm going to just drill it over and over again. I'm just going to get them to say, I'm a doctor, I'm a doctor, I'm a doctor. It seems a little bit repetitive, but if they are true beginners, they'll need some time just formulating these sounds. And while they're doing this, I can work on contractions. So not I am a doctor, but I'm a doctor. Get them to say it about 4 or 5 times or so. And then what I can begin doing is taking all of my other pictures for the different professions, and they can substitute it. So one might be, I'm a doctor. The next one is a picture of a teacher, and they'll say, I'm a teacher. The next one is a banker, I'm a banker, and so on. Once they are able to give the answer for question number one, I will then elicit out the actual question. And this is point three. So I, on my board, can write a question mark so they understand that it's a question, and then I will elicit the actual question. So what do you do for a living, etc. Now you might be thinking, they're not going to be able to do that, but you'll be surprised because language is logical. And since they've practiced this statement a bunch, and since we've gone over this language already in point number one, oftentimes many of the students will be able to fill in these blanks pretty easily. But if they can't, like anything else with eliciting, I'm pulling that up. I mean, I can have blanks for the words, and then they have to be able to give me the correct question. The next step in point three is we just practice saying it. We're just gonna drill it about 4 times with it up on the board, maybe even more than that. And the idea behind this is I want my students to be comfortable just asking this question. I found that beginner students, they might even understand everything that's going on, but if their mouth and their mind isn't used to kind of putting it all together, it's really difficult and it makes it really choppy.